Palm Sunday is a special day in the church's year. It's the time that we remember Jesus arriving in Jerusalem just before we have all of the troubles that follow the Last Supper, the trials, the crucifixion, and then gloriously on Easter Sunday, the resurrection. But Palm Sunday is important because it's the moment that the Gospels tell us that Jesus arrives in Jerusalem and is welcomed by the crowds with palm branches, and we mark Palm Sunday regularly with lots of these little palm crosses. Sadly this year I've got the stock and there's no congregation to give them to, so here's a small proportion of what we've currently got in church. But Palm Sunday was an interesting time for the Jewish people. They were expecting a Messiah, they were expecting a Saviour to come who would save them and make Israel great again. And I think they misunderstood the Jesus who arrived in Jerusalem that day. They were looking for someone who was maybe going to be more a warrior king who would drive the Romans out of their land. And they were looking at him maybe through the wrong lenses. We're told in Hebrews that long ago God spoke many times and in many ways to our ancestors through the prophets, and now in these final days he's spoken to us through his Son. In fact, that's our year verse. It happens to be the short part of the Bible we chose for our entire year that I've reproduced here in large format. And every year we give people a little postcard or a fridge magnet version of it so they can contemplate it. But in some ways it feeds into how we look at the world. How do we see the world? I'm very short-sighted. If I take my glasses off, I really see very badly. I certainly can't read. I couldn't read this postcard from there. I just can't read it. And when I put my glasses on, I can see it far more clearly and understand what I'm looking at. And sometimes we need glasses that are spiritual glasses. How do we look at the world? How do we look at things of faith? If I was to look out the window and contemplate the world with my glasses on, well, yeah, I can see things very clearly from this little shed in the garden. And if I take them off, actually, I really can't see much of any detail outside of the shed. I know there's a great big house over here, and I can see a big church up there, and there's a tree over here, and there's a bit of lawn in front of me. But I couldn't tell you what colour any of the flowers were, etc., until I put my glasses back on. And it's a bit of the same with Jesus, really. The Jewish people at the time weren't looking at their history and their future through the lens of Jesus. They were looking at it just through a partial part of the story they already know. And we're really fortunate today that we have the whole story. We know who Jesus was. We know what his life was about. We know what his death achieved. We also know fully what his resurrection, that first Easter, means for us today. And when we apply the lens of Jesus, as when we look at the world and we try to figure out our place in it, the troubles the world has, the difficulties it has, but we look at it through him as our lens, we can start to see things differently. We can start to understand that he's in this suffering with us, that he's, as one well-known theologian referred to him as the suffering Saviour. He's part of our suffering with us and gives us understanding as we pass through it, so that we can find those peaceful places when we need it. And so for us at St Jude's, this year verse actually for me has spoken again as I've thought about it for Palm Sunday. For those people there in Jerusalem that day when he arrived riding on a donkey, as they were laying down their palm branches for him that we remember with the palm crosses, that actually they were the first part of our year verse. Long ago God spoke many times and in many ways to our ancestors through the prophets. That's what they had. What they didn't have was the second part of our year verse. And now in these final days he's spoken to us through his Son. So I hope that at some point we'll all find a way to put on some glasses that help us to see things through the lens of Jesus. But in the meanwhile, maybe we can trust some who have already done that, who can say quite clearly and honestly and truthfully to you that Jesus has been a huge help to me. He's enabled me to see the world in a way that I wasn't seeing it decades ago. He transformed my life. He's transformed the lives of many of my friends. And as we prepare for the run-up to Easter, as we look forward to Good Friday and contemplate the cross, we also know the joy of the resurrection and what that means for our lives today. Be blessed. Stay safe.